risking your marriage for a one-week fling. I have been married to Ben for 7 years and sometimes wonder how I managed to stay with him and not go crazy. He is a good man and takes very good care of me. You might even say he puts me on a pedestal, but he has a major flaw. He's stingy. Well, maybe it's better to say frugal. We never lacked for necessities. But Ben was obsessed with saving for a rainy day, and if that rainy day never came, so much the better, we'd have enough in the bank for retirement. But I wasn't interested in what would happen 35 years from now. I lived in the here and now and wanted to enjoy everything while I was still young. I was tired of vacations consisting of throwing a tent in the trunk of my car and driving to the nearest state park for a week. I wanted to travel and see other places, but Ben always said it was too expensive. Better to stay home and put the money in the bank where it would one day do us good. After 7 years of Ben's frugality, I was at my limit. We had a vacation coming up, and I already knew what kind of vacation it was going to be because Ben had already set up the tent in the backyard to air it out. I didn't want to spend another week in a tent, in a state park, and alone with nature. And then Devil called with an offer he didn't think I could refuse. Matt had been my steady boyfriend throughout middle school, and I'd always assumed we'd get married when we graduated. I assumed this because Matt made me believe it right up until the week of graduation and the day he joined the Navy and went off to see the world. I quickly realized that Matt only wanted a steady girlfriend until he graduated and could leave town. 4 years later, Matt came home and wanted to resume our relationship from when he left me. I was married to Ben by then, and even if I wasn't, I wouldn't have been interested in Matt. Not after what he'd done to me. The fact that I was married meant nothing to Matt. Not a week went by that he didn't call me to see if I wanted to go out with him for a drink and talk about the old days. I knew what he wanted, and talking about old times had nothing to do with it. He thought he was going to have a couple drinks and put me in a motel room or in the back seat, but that didn't happen. I was fine with Ben, even if his cheap swagger sometimes pissed me off. Then Matt called me and offered to go on a road trip with him. And not just any trip, but a 7-day cruise ship trip. Talk about mixed emotions. I was facing a week in a tent 50 miles from home, and Matt offers me a 7-day cruise. I could go somewhere with nothing extra to do. Matt realized from my hesitation that I was thinking about it, but my answer would be no, and hastily continued. It's a no-strings-attached offer, babe. There are 3 other couples going there, and it's set up so that the girls will stay in 2 cabins and the guys will stay in the other 2. The girl who was supposed to go with me canceled the trip, and I can't get a refund on her ticket. Come on, baby, you gotta do it. You've never been farther than 200 miles from the city limits, and this may be your only chance. God, how I wanted to say yes, but all my instincts were saying no, even as my inner voice screamed, do it, do it, do it, do it. I told Matt I'd think about it and hung up. Had I thought about it? For days, I didn't think about anything else. I shouldn't do it, I knew I shouldn't, but I couldn't bring myself to pick up the phone and call Matt and tell him I couldn't do it. And then Ben gave me a big surprise. Guess what, honey? I talked my boss into letting me take time off along with my vacation. We'll be able to vacation under the stars for 11 whole days. Isn't that wonderful? Yes, honey, just wonderful. The next day, I picked up the phone and called Matt. Is the offer still on the table? Sure, babe. The girls are alone in their cabins? That's what I said. No sex, right? Honestly, baby, I'll keep my hands to myself the whole trip. Give me a day and I'll call you back. I called my sister, who lived 150 miles away, and asked if she could fill in for me for a week. Sure, I can do that. What's the big deal? Ben has made all the arrangements for us to spend 11 glorious days in his tent. I'm not going. I don't know what I'll do, but I'm not spending another day in that tent. We talked some more, worked out a plan, and then I went to tell Ben the bad news. Honey, I just got a call from Elise. She fell down the stairs and hurt herself. I'm going to have to go and spend the week helping her. But what about our vacation? Honey, you know you'll have more fun without my presence. You know that 3 days is all I can handle in this tent before I get cranky and cranky. Ben wasn't happy, but family is family, right? The fact that he and my sister didn't get along was extra insurance against him calling her and asking to talk to me. With my alibi secured, I called Matt and told him I was going, then started packing my suitcase. I knew the other three couples, so there was no awkwardness as we piled into Bob's Suburban. I did get a couple of, "You're a married woman, what are you doing here with Matt" looks, but nothing was going to happen between me and Matt, so I didn't care. It was just that the 8-hour trip was farther than I'd ever traveled in my life, and I spent most of it staring out the window. When we arrived at the port, I stood on the pier and looked at the ship. It was bigger than any building in our city, and I was to spend 7 days on it. 7 glorious days. I was sitting at a table with Sarah. The others had gone shopping or something, and she asked why I was here. I explained to her about Ben and the tent and how I couldn't spend another day in it. So when Matt called me about this trip, I jumped at the chance. "But I thought you were happy with Ben." "I am." "Then why are you willing to risk your marriage for a week-long fling with Matt?" I explained no relationship, hands off, girls living in separate quarters, and she shook her head and said, "Baby, I never thought you were that naive." Before I could ask what she meant, the rest of us went to the table, and then it was time to board the ship. The first sign that something was wrong was when Matt took mine and his stuff to the same cabin. "What are you doing?" "Relaxing. It's just until we get things sorted out. We want to check the cabins so we can give you girls the 2 biggest ones." "But there's only 1 bed in the cabin." "No. "Well, yeah, you'll be sleeping with one of the other girls." And then he laughed. "Unless you want to stay here with me." Before I could say anything else, there was a knock on the door, and Sarah poked her head inside and said, "Let's go. We have to go and learn about lifeboats and stuff like that." As I was learning how to put on my life jacket, I felt the floor under my feet shake. I later learned to call it the deck, and Harry said, "Great. We're off to 7 days of bliss." This also meant that it was too late to leave the ship. Next, I learned what I should have expected all along. It was too good to be true. Back in the cabin, I asked Matt when we girls were going to check into our cabins. "Well, babe, there's been a change of plans. The others decided they wanted a more typical boy-girl arrangement, so I guess you're stuck here with me." I called him every foul word I could think of, and when I finally exhausted my supply of swear words, he said, "That's not the way you look at it, baby. This is your chance to find out if you made a mistake by not waiting for me. I know you'll be better off with me than with Ben, and now I've got a whole week to prove it to you." "Over my dead body." "Well, you don't have many options. You can jump over the railing and try to swim to shore. You can try to talk one of the other couples into letting you stay with them, or you can go on deck and sleep on one of the deck chairs for a week." I knew we were too far from shore for me to swim to, and I knew that none of the others were going to spoil the trip by sheltering me. I also knew there was no way I was going to be able to sleep on a chaise lounge for a week. The nights were too cool and wet. It looked like Matt was going to get his wish. I would lie in bed with him, but I wouldn't undress, except to shower, and then only when Matt wasn't in the cabin. The first night he tried to hug me, but I pushed him away. Half an hour later, he reached up and put his arms around my chest, but I pushed his hands away. That's how the whole night went. He tried, and I pushed him away. The next day, I avoided Matt as much as I could. I walked all over the ship and absorbed it all. I couldn't avoid him during meals, and as we sat at the table eating, I noticed Sarah looking at me with a perplexed smirk. After dinner, I approached her and asked her why she hadn't told me about what Matt was doing when we were still in the car or at the table when the rest of us were shopping. "Matt told us you were coming of your own free will. Why would I have said anything? Besides, if I scared you away, my husband would be very angry with me. He's wanted to have sex with you for years, and he and the others see this trip as their chance." The stunned look on my face made her laugh. "That's right, sweetie. At one time or another, my husband has enjoyed all the girls who were with us on this trip, and at one time or another, I've enjoyed their husbands." "Is that what this whole trip is about?" "That's the point, honey. Matt enjoys making love to me and the other girls. The girl who was supposed to come canceled the trip and it was already bought and paid for, so Matt poured around and came up with you. Well, you can tell your husband that it's just not going to happen. Oh, it's going to happen, honey, and it's going to happen tonight. I shook my head in refusal and suddenly felt dizzy and disoriented, and Sarah said, "Are you okay? You'd better sit down." "No, I'll be fine. I'll just go back to the cabin and lie down for a while." "Okay, but I'll walk you there and make sure you get there okay." By the time we got to the cabin, I was already leaning on Sarah. She led me into the hut and helped me lie down on the bed. She looked at me and said, "I'm sorry to do this to you, honey, but I love my husband and I do whatever he wants," and turned and walked away, while I lay there trying to figure out what she had just said. After a while, Matt came into the cabin and started undressing. I tried to ask what he was doing, but I couldn't speak. I tried to stand up, but found that I couldn't move. Matt walked naked over to the bed, and he started to take my clothes off. I wanted to stop him, but I couldn't get my arms and legs to react. I could see and hear, but I couldn't do anything else. When Matt had undressed me, he climbed onto my bed and looked down at me. "I'd prefer you do it willingly, but I've come prepared in case you don't want to. I've asked Sarah to slip a drug into your drink for use on a date called GHB. You won't be able to resist. All you can do is lie there and watch it happen. But before this night is over, I can promise you that you will be a willing participant. You can't fight it, baby, so you might as well enjoy it. It shouldn't be too hard for you." Next, Matt started having sex with me. Oh my God, I just couldn't move. After that, Matt lay on top of me and then got up, got dressed, and left the cabin to return a little later with Sarah's husband, Mike, Jane's husband, Bill, and Marty's husband, Bob. A little later, Sarah walked in with the VCR. All the men undressed and walked over to the bed. Mike made love to me at a steady pace for 10 minutes, and by the time he subsided, my body was tingling. Matt passed the baton to Bob. After Bob came Bill, then Matt and Mike, and for the rest of the night, the 4 men took turns having sex with me. My body was alive with sensations, and they gave me no time to think about what I was doing. When the men left the cabin, I just rolled over onto my side and fell soundly asleep. I woke up around noon to being made love to. My first impulse was to pull away, but then I thought that after what had happened last night, why bother? I didn't want to do it. I would never have done it if I hadn't been drugged, but by the end of it, I was enjoying it. And not only enjoying it, but wondering when I could do it again. I pulled away, turned around, and found it was Mike. I wondered where Matt was. As if reading my mind, Mike said, "Matt is with Sarah. You're mine for tonight. Tomorrow you'll be at Bob's, and the day after that you'll be at Bill's." I don't know why, but the thought of having a different man every day turned me on, and I was ecstatic. We stayed in the cabin all day except for meals. That started most of the rest of the trip. My trip lasted a lifetime, and I spent almost all of it on my back or on my knees. On the 6th night, I had all 4 men again. The next day, our last day aboard the ship, Matt gave me to the steward as a tip. It was a unique experience for a girl born and raised in the Deep South. The steward enjoyed it so much that he asked if he could come back, and to my surprise, I agreed. He did return, along with 4 friends. I started the trip as a loving and faithful but somewhat naive wife, and ended up willingly having sex with a bunch of Negroes, and somehow I knew it wouldn't be the last time. The ride home was uneventful. Other than Sarah, I had nothing in common with the other wives. I did the 8-hour drive the same way I had done on the trip, looking out the window at the scenery, only this time I wasn't thinking about how exciting it was to visit new places and see new things. This time I was thinking about what had happened, what would happen, and what could happen. Was there a chance that all these men could have gotten me pregnant? And if so, who was the father? I could only hope and pray it wasn't one of the black stewards. If he was white, I could at least pass him off as Ben's child. As for the future, Mike had already told me that I was Matt's girlfriend and the shiznit of the band, or else the video Sarah made would be sent out to everyone I knew. He didn't know he didn't need the video. After that first night, I realized I was a cheater, and I proved it when I took 5 black men into bed whose names I never knew, and I loved it. Turning away from the window, I reached for Matt. He was right. I couldn't get enough of his body in high school, and it wasn't like anything had changed. The end? Subscribe to my channel. Thank you.